slideshow. Okay. So, hi, and thank you for having me back. The object of our talk today is to get your photos out of the boxes and organized. And I am really excited to have Jenny Stackle joining me today. She's waving, she's the Silver Linings Transitions photo organizing magician and manager. And she is going to fill in the gaps for me today when you have technical questions or something that I cannot answer, because she really is the one that handles the majority of this. So that being said, I'm going to move on. And I've spoken with you all before, and I really prefer when you guys can be on screen. Otherwise, it's really hard. I'm just staring at a blank screen, and it's makes it not as enjoyable of a presentation. And I like the feedback. And sometimes you have people that are, super gung-ho and willing. Right now, I see Vanya, Jenny, and me. So I'm glad at least, okay, I see a couple other people. Thank you so much. So for those of you who haven't heard me speak before, I always do like to give a little bit of a plug of what Silver Linings Transitions does, because a lot of people don't even know that the services that we provide exist. So if you don't mind, giving me a reaction with how many of you have heard of senior move management before? If you can raise your hand, I will scroll or say me, just because. Okay, I saw one hand go up. And I'm not, okay, I see a Marlene with a thumbs up, thank you, and a head nod. So I'm not seeing a lot of it. So I'm going to tell you, because it is a service that I think is important to know. So when somebody is moving out of the home that they've been in for many years, it can be a very overwhelming process. And, going through a lifetime of belongings and determining what you're going to keep and take with you, and then organizing the move, and then determining everything that you're not going to take. So that is what we do. We really we have magic wands in our hands, because when we finish making someone's move happen, they really do say it was like magic. And then what's funny is we used to only do seniors, and then we would get phone calls from other people who would call and say, they'd start with their age. I'm not a senior, but you helped my neighbor, and I want what they had, because we literally organize and unpack and hang the pictures. And most people don't like moving, and we make it as stress-free and fun as possible. So that is a little bit about who we are. And I'm trying to go on to the next slide. Okay, so just briefly, we go through the process. We help figure out what people are going to take with them. We create a floor plan that is to scale, including the furniture that they have. We go through all of the belongings. We determine what can be sold, what can we donate, and what can we, and then we help clear out the home. Since we're not focusing on that today, I'm not going to spend too much time, but the other service that we offer is organizing and garage storage and home organizing. So a lot of people have storage units, and they've been paying, I call it storage units just deferred maintenance. They've been paying on them for a while, and we can help go through contents, figure out if there's anything of value, ship items off, and get it emptied, so you're not continuing to pay money to store things. And this is where we are today with our photo digitization and organizing. And I'm going to share a story of a client that we had that had been in her home in La Jolla for more than 50 years. And there were photos. And Jenny, feel free anytime you want to jump in and embellish the story to do that. But she had photos literally all over the house, strung everywhere. They were the most important thing to her. So when the family hired us to do her move, they learned about our photo digitization and organization, and they hired us to do that. So Jenny took every single album and every single photo that they had in their home, digitized them, put them on one of those digital photo albums. But what I think was the coolest thing that she did is that she found these family trees on Etsy. She did one for the ancestors and one for the descendants, and really created this beautiful artwork around her photos. So I know the family was really happy with it, and we can do all sorts of things with photos, which is something that you should keep in mind as you are digitizing and scanning your photos. So with all of that said, I'm pretty much ready to jump into the presentation. Is there anybody that has any questions before I flip over? Okay. All right. So organize. Why? I'm going to ask you guys, why do you think it's important that we digitize these photos? Hold on. Just decided to. Anyone want to share why they think it's important? Well, you're here today, so you know, obviously it's important.
Well, I think it's important so that they are preserved better, and then you can label them, or people know who people are, or timing, or they're not just in a box like mine are.
Yeah, thank
A
you.
large, like
Any,
4 boxes actually.
you only have 4 boxes?
Well, they're big bankers
Okay.
boxes.
Okay. Yeah, that's not too bad. Anybody else besides Marlene? Thank you, Marlene, for jumping on the call.
Yes, I'm here. When scrapbooking was popular, a lot of us had made one big album for each year. So I
Mhm.
have all these. I have 20 thick albums labeled each year. And who's going to want those of the 7 kids? Who's going to want all those albums?
Well, and what if there are albums that, you know, people all want? So we're going to talk about that today too. The other thing is people, you know, and when you ask what you would grab in a fire, I think it's like 30 or 40% say they would grab photos. So, I mean, they really are so important. They tie us to our history. And what's really important, especially to you all, is that older photos are disintegrating. They were not printed on the same paper that we now that we print photos on. And so if they are not digitized, they're going to disintegrate. And you can see this if you start opening those old albums, you'll see them yellowing, sticking to the paper. And by the way, the worst place you could store those photos is in a hot space like a garage. So if you are storing them in a garage or an attic, get them out of there. Jenny, anything to add before I move on to the next slide?
No, I think that's good. I mean, I can say all these things we can do with scrapbooks, but I can wait and we can talk about that later. Yeah.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. Okay, so if you're going to organize your photos, you're going to need to create an area. And I'm going to tell you that when we're organizing someone's home, we don't want to leave out the area that we're going to work on. We want to finish it by the day. We don't want to leave a deferred mess. But I'm going to change my opinion when it comes to photos. I think it's really important to have a workstation that you can leave out, because it is, would you agree? As I see Jenny's head nodding, yes, you need a dedicated station. So, make sure that you have a table that you can put off to the side, maybe put it in front of a television or something that, music that inspires you, because it is a daunting process. If it was easy, you guys wouldn't have boxes of photos, right? We'd all just be tackling them. And this industry wouldn't exist. So there actually is, we're part of it. There's a national photo organizing industry, which actually there are, I think, more of those than there are senior move managers. So photos are really, really important to people. So the supplies that you want are a notebook, a pen, a Sharpie, Post-its, trash bags, something to sort them into. I like to use plastic bags and then write on them. And also dental floss. And this is a tip that people like when you're going through those old albums. You can actually use dental floss to get them off from the glue, rather than I used to rip around them, but you could just use dental floss. Some people want to use the cotton gloves because they can smudge. So those are the supplies you want, but more important is what you don't want to use. And that is, you don't want to use paper clips, rubber bands, tape, glue, adhesive. You don't want to use ballpoint pens. You want to get photo pencils to write on the back, because that can all, damage the paper. Let's see. Okay. And all right. Now here is the hard part. Oh, the other thing is you want to go around your home and you want to grab all of the photo albums, all of the picture frames, and you want to get the photos all into the same place so that you're calling everything together. And here is what you do next. So I am really struggling with my computer today. It is okay. So I always tell people this, and I tell them this with organizing as well. Perfect is the enemy of done. When somebody thinks that something has to be done perfectly, they will stop in their tracks and be overwhelmed. And so I think that what's most important is, defining your goal. Is it important that the photos are chronologically ordered, or is it important that you're backing them up? And so we're going to talk about a couple different methods, but making sure that, you're clear on your why. And the other thing that you can do is you can, just to gain some momentum, is say, okay, I'm going to do 10 minutes a day for the next week, and just start with that. And then if you want to go further, great, but at least you are giving yourself some momentum. All right. Anything else to add on that one so far? Okay. So this is a system that we recommend for prioritizing your photos, because not everything needs to be digitized. Photos, so an A photo is a photo that you would display, and using that client example that we gave you in the beginning, that's something that you would want to print and put on the wall, a display. Everybody knows who the person is, who the person is. A B is a photo that you would put in a photo album. And then remember too, when you're culling pictures, that we used to remember when you would get like 4 copies for the same price, and then you would take 8 pictures to get the same one person. So when you start to really go through those photos, you're going to get a very clear picture of which ones are blurry and which ones are not blurry. You don't need the same pose, with the better smile. So culling those down. And those are your C photos. And then a D photo is a picture of scenery or people that you don't know. So we always recommend that if you're going to, spend money to digitize, you want to make sure that that's an A photo or a B photo. And then if it's just something that you want to share with loved ones and haha, look at this or whatever, you can actually, and we're going to get into that, you can actually take photos of it with your phone, and you don't need to put a lot of effort and time into digitizing. And you definitely want to toss out the ones that are blurry, that are duplicates, because you want to just make the process easier. Okay. So the other rule that I prefer is to categorize by person, family, event, theme, or holiday, rather than this was 1970, 1971, 1972. That becomes very overwhelming. And again, my intention is that we want to stop the disintegration of these photos and get them out of the boxes. Okay. So here is, you want to get these pictures out, like we talked about, of these magnetic or peel and stick albums. So even if you have them and they're not disintegrating, get them out of those, because they're not on good paper. So when you are looking for albums, if you want to go that route and you don't want to digitize and put them back in like a digital book, you want to look for acid-free or archival quality paper. Okay, digitize. All right, so there are 3 ways to digitize a photo, and there's basically a good, better, and a best, and we're going to go through this process. So this picture was actually blown up with camera scanning. It's going to be considered best, and and you can see the yellowing that I'm talking about. And this was actually done with another photo manager before Jenny. Jenny blows our old one away. She's amazing. But this was a picture of my great grandmother. Now we can get out blemishes. We can blow these things up. In fact, when Jenny is scanning, she actually has to dust the photos off, because even a piece of dust when you're camera scanning is going to show up. So we're going to talk a little bit about the different ways that you can do it. So the good method is that you do it yourself and you use your own phone. And basically what you're doing is you are scanning a picture of that, scanning the picture with your phone, and you can look for different apps that will allow you to do that. And this is great if it's just something you want to make a slideshow for a family member, you want to put it on a website. You don't need the same quality for a picture like that. And then also what's nice is that you can convert it over to digital. So Jenny, anything to add to this one? Because this is where the technical comes in.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a picture with your phone, it won't ever be high enough quality really to print it. So, but if all you want is to have them digital or put them on a frame, a digital rotating frame, then that can be fine. I
Right.
really like PhotoMine. That's my favorite for that method.
Thank you. I love when you come in. Okay, and then the better is using a big box scanner that you can buy from Amazon or Best Buy, and these work really well, but you can't put anything that's very fragile through there. I have seen it. It's like putting something through a copier and it crunches up. So if you have a document that's very fragile or that is going to be bigger than the 8 by 11, it's not going to fit through a scanner. Anything to add to that one, Jenny?
Nope. And I mean, you wouldn't put a scrapbook page through there,
Correct.
for example. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, and then best. So this is something that I didn't even know existed until I got into this industry, and that's something called camera scanning. And basically, you have a camera stand, and you have a camera that's a very, very, very high magnitude lens, so that, like I said, it can blow up a speck of dust. So we actually use glass, museum quality glass, over the photo, and when we're scanning, we're putting the picture under the glass, and there's special lighting for it. And this is what you want to use. I think that stand is what, 14 by 14, Jenny? So this is where we're going to do, if you have a photo, a scrapbook that you want to digitize, you can actually lift the photos out of the picture and scan them that way, or you can actually copy the entire page and print it up. But anything, and this is, again, anything that you're going to want to print that's a more delicate quality, that's a photo album. Anything else, Jenny?
Yeah, so the camera we use is a 50 megapixel camera. It's extremely powerful. And so we can take a little tiny school photo, of one of your kids like this, and we can make it so you can blow it up and print it or have it on a big screen if you're doing a slideshow. So the other thing about this that's so convenient is if you have a scrapbook page or even a photo album page where you don't want to remove the photos, or the photos are stuck and they've almost merged with the page, there's no way to get it out. We can scan the photos on the page. So we literally set the page down there and we move the page and take a photo of each photo. So it's pretty much taking a photo of a photo. The other thing is, if the page is really large, bigger than about 8 by 10, we can still scan that, and then our software can stitch the images together automatically. So you could even scan a piece of artwork. Maybe you used to paint, you have this big painting, and you don't want to keep the painting around, but you don't want to lose the painting. We can literally take pictures of the painting by rotating it under the camera, and then we say stitch it together, and you'll have this beautiful high resolution image of your painting. So anyway, this method allows us to not only get really clear images of your photos, but also enables us to scan an entire page, scan pages of photos that you don't want to pull off, and also scan really large items.
Thank you. I appreciate the help. Okay. So you want to, when you are scanning pictures, there are some people who want it to be more than just cloud-based digitizing. So there are people that don't trust, and I have heard, and Jenny, you back me up, that you should have these photos saved to at least 2 different places. So one can be cloud-based, and maybe one is an external hard drive or something that you keep, a flash drive. But usually we find that the Tetris hard drives are big enough to store the photos, and then you've got them backed up in 2 different places.
I would also say, I mean, the golden rule is 3 places, meaning you keep the physical photo, but a lot of people don't want to keep the photo. That's the whole purpose. So you could always, take all the photos off of your pages and just stack them up, keep them in an envelope and throw them somewhere, or you can get rid of them and then have maybe one set on your computer and then another set somewhere on the cloud somewhere. So definitely two, and also a hard drive backup.
Right. but I mean, again, a lot of people do, they want the space. And I know Jenny has agonized when she's had clients say, please just throw them out. But you know, in theory, if you've got them in two different places, you should be able to print them or look at them. Okay, so we're going to give you some suggestions on other things that you can do with these photos once you have digitized them. Any questions so far from anybody as we're moving along? I'm gonna, if you have a question, it's helpful because I can't see everybody with the screen. If you just say me and I'll stop.
Me.
Okay, yes.
You said something about a Tetris hard drive. What is that?
It's like a tetrabyte. It's like
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, maybe I called it the wrong thing. It's a tetrabyte, right? Like there's, and
Terabyte. It's probably terabyte. It's like 75.
terabyte.
The ones that I use are about 75 gigabytes. So usually I'll do little USB drives and I give everyone their scans on a USB. If we keep going and go, like a 16 gigabyte USB drive, but if we go and go and go and need a lot more, then we're getting up to more like bigger hard drives with maybe 75 gigabytes or a terabyte. Yeah, so there are lots of options.
Okay, so you are saying that thumb drives are okay for storage. It doesn't have to be a dedicated hard drive box connected to your computer.
Right. I believe that USB drives, if you constantly are moving the files, the file quality starts to degrade. I don't know a lot about that. So it's nice to have it on a little hard drive that's somewhere else and you're never touching it. But if you're moving files around for a couple months and you're making projects and we're doing projects together, then a USB is fine. So you could put it on USB and just put it off in a little envelope somewhere. That should be fine.
I will say for me, because I did, when I digitized my photos, I wanted to have it on something that was a little bit bigger than just a flash drive. So it was easier to find. So that was sort of my and also I didn't want to have to keep transferring or, you know, I just wanted it all in one place. So it's a matter of preference.
Me?
Go ahead.
Hi. Will you later tell us what the best way or place is to throw away files that you're disposing of?
Do you mean the physical pictures or do you mean?
Yeah, the physical pictures.
Jenny, I put in recycling. What's the appropriate?
I mean, I most of my clients literally throw them in the trash. If you're concerned about privacy, I maybe take it to a shredder. I know some people, a few slides ago, I was thinking, you may have photos that are so old and they seem so precious, but you don't know who anyone is in them. And maybe they're over 100 years old. And some people, if you don't want to, we suggest getting rid of it. If no one in your family knows who it is now, no one will ever know who it is. If you want, there might be some historical societies or a library that might want to take those photos just to have an example of, you know, clothing of the time and whatever. Someone in the city of Carlsbad might want something that was taken in Carlsbad a long time ago. But in general, people throw them away.
Okay, I was just asking because I think they're highly flammable, aren't they?
Oh, I don't even know the answer to that. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you.
And then there's online sharing, which, you know, I know one of the things that Jenny has done is we had a client who passed away and they asked her to create a slideshow. And so she created a share site where everybody could contribute towards that album. And she was able to create, you know, books from that and then the slideshow, the memorial slideshow. So there are all sorts of formats for sharing these photos. And these were a few. Jenny, is there one that you prefer that our clients have preferred?
You know, I spend more of my time digitizing physical photos, but there is a whole branch of this industry where it's all about digital organization. So I have some examples. One I really like is a company called Mylio, and MYLIO. And they have a free version where you just put it on your computer and it's for one specific device, and you can do facial recognition, tagging. You can create all these really neat things. And I did it for a couple hours. I uploaded 7,000 photos, and it just takes everything and puts it up there, and then you can organize it. If you do a paid version, it's much more robust, and then you can share it with family. And you can start to use multiple devices. So I could say grab from these different computers, my phone, my iPad, and it's constantly sort of uploading it. So that's my favorite one. Shutterfly, you know, has been around forever, and you can always share that way. But I really like Mylio, but it really depends on what is your goal. And then there's also one called Forever, which I'm not sure of the pricing, and it's much more robust, but you can create slideshows on the fly, and you can have family members log in, and they can upload photos. So there are lots of options. So it's impossible for me to know all of them, but if you have a goal, then I can help you find the right tool for that.
Question?
Sure.
I seem to remember hearing once that original, photos on photographic paper are not something that they want in either trash or recycling because of the chemicals involved. And that, there's some nasty chemicals and things that would leach into the groundwater. And anyway, I seem to have heard that somewhere a long time ago. I don't know if that's still an issue. And obviously, if you have just a couple, it's probably not something you'd worry about. But if you are tossing out an entire lifetime's worth after you've done your digitization, is that going to be a problem?
I'm going to have to look into this. Now I'm really curious. I've never heard that, and I will find out.
And I have heard that with CDs, that you're not supposed to put those, but I haven't heard it before with photos. So, but yeah, I wrote it down too, Jenny. So we can definitely, when we send a follow-up, we can send the answer that, I mean, we're going to.
I know about 10 years ago, I had an entire, 8 by 10 by 5-inch photo paper box completely filled with science photos from research that were no longer needed. And at that point, I was told, don't put them in the trash, whatever. And I managed to give them away on Craigslist for somebody who was making collages of
that's
weird
cool.
things.
Yeah. You know what? That's actually always a good too. There you can use, for stuff like that, you can use Nextdoor or Buy Nothing. There used to be, before Nextdoor and Buy Nothing, there was Free Cycle, and I used it for craft supplies, freecycle.org. And that might be a good way to go, but we'll look into that answer. Like I said, I do know about it with CDs, and I had not heard about it with photos. Okay, so, and it's you can also make digital albums, and I've personally made my own digital albums many times, but some are easier to work with than others. Again, that's something that is a personal preference. Is there one, Jenny, that you think is probably, and I will say also that we have access to like the professional books that you would get if you hired a professional company, which I don't think you can access those, and it's like the way that they fold open. But what are the ones that you think are good, just easy to use? And also, I will say this from someone that's done them, is that if you don't care about the order and you're okay with like a random order, it can be easier to use as well.
Wait, so we can make an album that's thin. It's just something you want to have maybe it's a theme or a trip, or maybe it's a gift for someone when they're getting married. We can create a thin, inexpensive one. If you want something, like a Shutterfly or Canva, I love, because they're really fast and easy to make, and the quality is good enough. And an album with 400 pictures is probably $50 to $75. That's just kind of the most simple book. But if you want a beautiful keepsake, something that would be someone's wedding album, that is much more involved, much more beautiful, better paper. Also, anytime, like Jamie was saying, if you want to have a specific order for the photos, and if you want captions on the photos, then all of those things become a little more complicated. So we can do all of that's possible. But so there are simple ones, Canva, Shutterfly, all the way up to Miller's, I think, is kind of considered the best in the industry.
And I did check the chats, and thank you to Marlene, who said she looked it up, and you cannot recycle old photos due to the chemicals, but they can go into the garbage.
Ooh. Great.
So we're not going to follow up on that one. So thank you
Okay.
for that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and so the other thing that Jenny mentioned is being able to digitize all of the photos. And for this client that we shared in the beginning, because she had photos everywhere, I think you scanned every single photo in her collection and put them on a digital frame. Am I correct?
Yes, so she had about 75 photo albums spanning about 50 years. And so we in the beginning, we were scanning all of them. And then in the end, they decided to kind of just do a representation. And so I would select the photos since a lot of them were very repetitive. And so ultimately, they ended up with about 7,500 photos, which were incredible. The outfits and everything through the decades were just really amazing. And then we helped them buy a photo frame that would work for them and in her space. And then they loaded them all on there. And my dad actually has a frame, and it's the brand is Aura, AURA. And I'm not sure if other frames do this, but all of us have the app on our phone. And anytime we do something that we think he might like on his digital frame, we just add it to the app and it appears in his frame. So the digital frame is something that's sort of like a living, changing digital frame. It's incredible. I think in the very beginning, maybe you would load photos and only those specific photos would rotate. So that's a great way to enjoy your photos, and you can give them to people as gifts. And, you know, that's just like a classic way, and they're different sizes.
Okay. Any questions so far? All right. So, you know, you can enlarge them. I know I've done mixed tiles myself, and you can create these amazing gallery walls. And I believe with mixed tiles, you can actually do it from your Facebook photos. You don't have to have the higher quality photos because they're a little bit smaller. They're a little grainy, I'm going to say that. But you know, if you're making little, you know, tiles, then you can go with those photos. And then again, you can go all the way up to something that's customized, like the tree that you see on the picture on the right. Okay, so our services, just so you know, and Jenny, do you want to talk a little more about what we offer?
Sure. So this is a sample. This is like a case study that we did of one of our clients, and it's actually the same client who had these 75 photo albums. Well, in the middle of all that, he found this very old album that was falling apart, as you can see on the left, that his dad had assembled from his travels in India and work in India in the 40s. And he had handwritten on every page, you know, little anecdotes and things. And so what we did was we scanned every page, first of all, in the method I was telling you, where you take pictures of the page and stitch it together. So we had a digital replicate of the album, so every single page. And then we kind of we kind of stitched out each individual photo. So then we ended up with a few hundred photos. And then I recreated the album for him because the original album was completely falling apart. It couldn't be put back together, and it was very, very delicate. And so I recreated the album, and then he hasn't decided yet if he wants to reprint the album, but what we did was we made a slideshow. And so I was also able to zoom in on some of the text. And so you could read it better, and I could change the contrast so it was more clear. And so we ended up with this beautiful slideshow from his dad and all his travels in India with his handwriting. And then I don't know if we have another slide, but eventually he also decided to turn that slideshow into a video book, which is, oh yeah, there it is on the left, how you can see how I took the scans, created specific images, and then ultimately created this video book. And the reason we did this video book was we created these slideshows, but his mother, every time she tried to play the slideshow on an iPad, she would end up getting confused and ending up on the internet. Or so he wanted a really, really simple method for her to just look at this video. And so we found these video books, and they range from $50 to $150, and they're basically a USB drive. And so you load on maybe 1, maybe 5 videos. For him, we loaded the trip to India, and as soon as you open the cover, the video starts to play, and it only has pause, play, stop, and then it has chapter forward or back. So she can sit there in her chair and enjoy this beautiful little video. And then he made copies and gave them to his siblings, and it has music that was from the 40s. So that was such a fun project. But for him, now he can enjoy the photos instead of being too afraid to even touch them because the paper was falling apart. So that's just one example of all these different ways we can help you enjoy your photos instead of just having them somewhere feeling anxious about not doing anything with them.
Okay. So, we can also help with the organization if that is something that, you're overwhelmed and you want someone. I mean, we offer that service. And we can really, Jenny, I say Jenny can really create whatever it is you want to create out of those photos.
And I will, Jamie, I'll interject real quick. I have to say, every single person I've talked to who said, tell me about your services. Okay, let me go and organize my photos and then I'll call you back. Not a single one of them has ever called me back. And that's because for the same reason they haven't organized their photos in 20 years, they're still overwhelmed by organizing their photos. So what I would suggest is even just have me come in and help you get started, because just having someone to help you lay out the groundwork, even if it's for 2 hours, it's much easier to get started. And so if you don't want to do any of it and you just want to hand me boxes, and 4 boxes, by the way, for someone who mentioned that earlier, that's pretty good. If you have just boxes and boxes and you can't even deal with it, that's fine. I can deal with it. I can either scan everything, not knowing who anyone is, or we can start to talk about who's who and set up some categories. But a lot of times it's honestly easier if you just hand it over. So it's really up to you, but I'm more than happy to come help you come up with some kind of an organization for your treasures.
Thank you. All right. And then again, if you want to do them on your own, we've told you what you need to do. And then if you need some help digitizing them further, then, that's the services that we can help you with as well. Okay. And then, these are just different examples. I think Jenny did a really good job of explaining some of the projects that she's had. One of the things that I also really like is when Jenny, I wish I should have put it in the presentation. There was a picture of me. I was born in the early 70s. So, they're already showing their date and yellowing, and she was able to completely correct it so that it looked, and it didn't look fake or filtered. It looked like it would have been if it had been taken today. And I'm going to remember to add that to the slideshow, because I think that's really useful to see what you can do with color correction. But yeah, so I think we really kind of covered all of it in this talk. And then we talked about, the camera scanning.
Yeah, I have one more thing I forgot. Behind me, I think you can see this is a photo collage. This was one other neat project that you can do. This was actually for a client who was about to celebrate his 90th birthday. And he had a few albums and then several stacks of physical photos. So we scanned the photos and then I posted them in an online gallery, and they chose their favorite. I don't remember if it was about 75 photos. I'm not sure how many are behind me. And then we created a huge collage, and there's this amazing software that it creates it automatically for you. So, and then you can just keep saying refresh and it'll move it and you can drag and drop. And then we created a title that I took off of this one. And so he created a huge poster that was a 4x6 on foam board. And it was really inexpensive, and he got to have that up at his birthday party. And I've also done that as gifts. I've done it for graduations, all sorts of different things. So that's a really neat software that we have, that it's a subscription software, and it creates it automatically. So it's not time consuming, but it produces these really beautiful posters, collages.
Mhm. Thank you. Is there any other questions that we didn't cover?
I have one.
Sure.
I am recently dealing with my brother's estate, and he was an artist. He took photos of everything he made, plus all his own, travel and personal photos. And they were all on his computers and phones and multiple places. And I was wondering, I haven't really started using any of the programs on my Apple devices with the photos, but is there an easy way to weed out duplicates? Because that's a really big issue.
There is software that will help you do that, and I haven't used it, but I'd be happy to look that up for you. And it's not even duplicates. It will help you weed out photos that are very similar, when you get a bunch in a row. So
Right.
yes, I can look into that. It might not be free, it might be paid, but definitely, yeah, because that's a huge issue. You're not alone.
Thank you.
Yeah, Marlene, I see Marlene's hand.
A couple of things. I was looking into getting a decent photo scanner. I noticed you showed the picture of an Epson, and I looked up a few things, did a little research. And would you recommend this Epson? The one I found was an Epson Fast Photo 680 or something like that. It looks like it's about $500. Am I in the right ballpark?
So yes, when we bought that, that was before we started camera scanning. Camera scanning
Right.
is the latest evolution. But we bought that before we started camera scanning, and that was a course that I took where he recommended it, but that was a couple years ago now. So I don't know, again, camera scanning is considered the preferred method. But all in with equipment, it was like $10,000 for us.
Yeah,
to
that's
get
not going to happen here in my house.
Right.
So,
But
I mean,
but as a
that-
business, yes, but
that's
I
more
remember
for like your plain vanilla regular photos that are scannable, that are right sized, that aren't going to
Yep.
rip apart or fall apart. But so you could use that for a lot of your photos, if that's, because I have a ton of the sort of normal photos.
Yeah, in fact, we used to, and it's something that we probably should consider now, we used to rent out, this is the second scanner that we had. We had another one before this one. Because I don't think, Jenny, you're not really using that scanner. So I mean, it's probably something that we could rent out and then get you set up and get you started. And so Jenny, we can
Got
talk
it.
offline.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never used it. I know people like it. There's also flatbed scanning that a lot of people like, and you can put multiple photos on at once. It's much, much slower. So when I do camera scanning, I can scan 350 photos an hour if they are clean, which it takes a little more time if I have to dust them, and if they're all the same size. So, but even if they're not all clean, they're not all the same size, I am so fast. But doing one of those just takes a lot longer. So for us, it doesn't make sense. But for you,
Sure.
yeah, it's probably fine.
Okay.
But I can't personally vouch for it. But if that's what we had, then I'm sure that's pretty good.
That was
Okay.
that was the preferred method before camera scanning. So
Yeah, but that brand, I'm yeah. If we have
And then
it.
one more question about the different apps and things you could do maybe a book on. Do all of them have the capability of adding a caption or a name or anything to a photo, or just some of them?
For printable books, like printable albums.
Yeah, or even just an online album that you didn't print. I mean, they do?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say there are so many out there now. I mean, I would say probably hundreds. So some like Jami may have made, or I think there used to be something called Flipbook. It was only photos, but there are so many options out there where you can add captions, and
Okay,
some
good.
very simple, and it probably limits your size. But I love Canva, but Canva it's kind of all custom. So every caption, you're like dragging in a text box, but there are some that are much faster and easier. So yeah,
Okay.
there are lots of options.
Okay, great. Thank
And,
you.
you know, even Googling something, I Google all the time, you know, easiest book for, and then you will find an advertiser who will come up and tell you exactly what to do. And I see Jean has her hand up.
Yes, I have 2 points. First is that here in San Diego, the public library system has a couple of centers that will transform media in one format into another. So that would mean, you know, digitizing your photos, your slides, old videos, or old things on old kinds of discs that don't fit your computer anymore. They've got all those things that will transfer them. I gather it's fairly slow. You have to make appointments to, you know, learn to use the gadgets, and then you have to do it yourself. So probably only worthwhile for something really valuable, but that is available, and I don't think there's a charge for it. Second point is, I don't remember you saying much about slides, and that's
Oh,
something I
yes.
have a ton of.
Yes, I can do slides and negatives. And slides, actually, I love doing them because the quality is incredible. It's just, they're amazing. They're not photos that someone's been touching or have, you know, little scratches on them. So yes, we basically scan those exactly the same way. And I think there are also feeders that you can do it on your own, but we scan it the exact same way. We have a special sort of little tray with a light underneath, and we just pop them in one at a time and take a photo of it.
Thank you for asking and bringing up the other. Any other questions?
Yes, it's Fran here. I don't have questions. I have two procedures that I've come up with that are very much appreciated. One is I'm always concerned that the kids and the grandkids and the great grandkids don't necessarily remember or appreciate the family history. So I've taken the very first page of my baby book has our mother as a toddler in the Alps, the Swiss Alps, with little with Saint Bernard puppies around her feet. So I'll photograph. I used to take it to Kinko's and just do the whole page of the album, and photograph and mail it to the kids. And then I'm a Pearl Harbor baby, so I also would do a couple of pages from when the parents were pregnant with me, when the planes flew over and bombed, and some of the letters back and forth, and then pictures between my parents. I've just done that with Kinko's, you know, with on the whole big album, that's pages that are already journaled and everything. And then also we had these high school photos from our 7 kids. I didn't want to, they were in a drawer. So I took them and I shrunk them, and I bought some collage photo frames, horizontal. So the first one is their a small version of their high school picture. The next photo is their wedding picture. The next photo, and then I had a blank one, and then I would put each one of their kids. If Barbara had 3 daughters, and I'd skip a page, a frame, and then do her 3 daughters. So then the center frame has the grandkids, the babies that her daughters have had. So it has like Barbara and her wedding picture, and then her 3 daughters are at the end, and then when their wedding with their wedding pictures, and then in the middle are her grandkids, and those are on my wall. So that's a really nice display of the 7 kids. And so since we went out to international students, we're always giving house tours. So I can say, here's my family. You know, this family lives in Arizona. This family lives in Arizona. This family lives in Washington. And they could see at a glance who the family is.
Wonderful. I love it.
I do want to mention, speaking of capturing stories, not necessarily photos, but for Mother's Day, I got my mom and my mother-in-law a subscription to My Life in a Book. And what it does is every week you get a prompt, and then they write, you know, what they want to say. And I think that there's room for them to add photos. And I thought that was a really cool way of preserving memories as well. And that was a good gift.
Yeah.
I had one more thing on the slides. This is more of a quick and dirty way to deal with them, but for a lot of pictures, that might be all you need. And that the recommendation was to set up your projector and put your camera phone on a tripod and just click, every picture as you go through the carousel of slides. And it's not real high quality, but that might be all you need for, certain family events or travel pictures.
I think that's a great idea because slides take up so much room. And yeah, a lot of people and a lot of young kids now, they don't want any physical photos. They just want the digital image, and they probably will never even print it. And if they do, they'll print it small. So that would be enough just for the future, just to preserve those photos. It's a great idea.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for having us. It's always nice to be able to share what it is that we do. And if you know anyone that can benefit from our services, we appreciate you sharing our information with them. And Jenny I put her contact information up on the screen. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Stop share.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks.